And in Wisconsin, we are following the tattoo punch murder trial for Kevin Sehmer. He's accused of punching and killing Josh Davies because he didn't like the look of his tattoos. The defense claims the victim attacked Sehmer with a stool outside that wine bar where this took place. While we wait for court to resume in Massachusetts, let's begin in Wisconsin for the trial of Kevin Sehmer. For more on the case, here's Court TV anchor Ashley Wilcott.
There was nothing provoked in this. He was simply on a double date night with his wife, minding his own business, when somebody decided that they didn't like the way he looked.
39-year-old Joshua Davies was on a date with his wife at Tabby's Lake Country Wine Bar when Kevin Sehmer confronted Davies about his tattoos.
He made a comment about those tattoos and something to the effect of that it was a sin and they would go to hell.
Court documents say Davies and his wife attempted to leave to ease the situation, but Sehmer followed them outside the bar.
Mr. Sehmer struck the victim in the head with such force that he immediately lost consciousness, fell to the ground, and struck his head further.
Officers found Davies on the sidewalk going in and out of consciousness and was rushed to the hospital. 27 days later, Davies died as a result of the injuries.
We are grateful that the gentleman that made bad choices and took a life that should never have been taken, is in custody.
Sehmer was initially charged with aggravated battery, but now faces a felony murder charge. Sehmer claims he lost his cool after Davies made comments directed at him. Once outside, Sehmer said he pushed Davies but wasn't trying to kill the guy. He says he only pushed him because Davies provoked him by raising a stool at him.
This should have never happened. This man needs to pay at the fullest extent of the law.
All right, that was Ashley Wilcott reporting there. So what we want to do now is bring you some key moments that you might have missed in the tattoo punch murder trial. The victim's wife, Jennifer, took the stand yesterday. Some emotional moments there. She said that she was with her husband as they were followed by Sehmer outside that wine bar, and her husband tried to de-escalate that situation. Take a listen.
After I walked out, it happened so fast, and he just ran out, and when I screamed, it was because he had punched Josh, because I was standing right next to Josh.
And I'm going to get to that part, but we also saw towards the end of this video, you come back in. Did you see that?
Yes.
Do you recall what you said or why you came back in?
I came back in and said, the owner just punched my husband.
Now, I previously asked you if you tried to stop Kevin from going outside. In the video, does that refresh your recollection at all if you tried to stop him?
Yes.
So did you try to stop him?
Yes.
And how did you try to do that?
I tried to get in and stay in front of him and not let him out.
Ms. Davies, how tall are you?
5'2".
I'm not going to ask how much you weigh, but do you weigh less than
Yes.
275 pounds?
Yes.
Can you tell me, what did you observe happen after Kevin goes outside?
I watched as Kevin charged towards Josh. Josh picked up a stool and chucked it at Kevin to defend himself.
What stool did he pick up?
A stool from Tabby's.
Okay. And you said that, and at that time when Josh picked up the stool, what was Kevin doing?
Charging at him.
Now, you said that you observed Kevin punch Josh, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us how Kevin punched Josh?
With his right hand.
Do you remember if it was a fist or an open hand?
A fist.
Where on Josh's body did Kevin hit Josh?
In the temple, like it is right here.
Do you know which temple of Josh's? Which side?
His left.
And after you observed Kevin punch Josh, what happened to Josh?
Just fell.
Fell to the ground.
Fell to the ground.
Did you see Josh hit his head again?
When he fell,
What did he hit it on?
the cement sidewalk.
Ma'am, that is the written statement you wrote at the hospital, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you indicate in there that the man you knew as Kevin ran, then screaming at my husband about tattoos, is that right?
Yes.
And you said my husband defended himself and picked up a chair or stool to defend himself from the crazy person who went after him. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, and then you finish by hearing Mr. Sehmer say, "I'm effing out of here." Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what you didn't say in that statement is that Mr. Sehmer punched your husband. Isn't that true?
Yes.
You didn't, ma'am, in that statement say that your husband threw a stool at him, correct?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Yes, ma'am. You didn't in your statement say that your husband threw a stool at him, correct?
I said he picked up a chair or stool to defend himself.
I understand, but you don't say that he, being your husband, threw the stool at my client.
No. I was very rattled.
Ma'am, I am certain you were rattled.
Let's get a question.
But you also were asked to provide a statement while you were in the hospital, rattled, to explain what you saw that evening. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And since, according to your testimony, your husband hit his head on the cement as a result of being punched, can you explain to this jury why you didn't think that fact was something that you thought necessary to put into your statement?
To be honest, I had no idea it was this serious. I had never written a statement before. I didn't realize that I had to be that specific. I could barely write. I was shaking. So I didn't know it was ever going to be needed. I didn't know this was going to happen.
Well, you knew your husband was in the hospital with
I had no idea the injuries.
Let me just finish, if I may, ma'am. You did realize that your husband was seriously injured, correct?
Honestly, no. I didn't know at the time that I thought he just got punched and he would just wake up.
Well, except that you weren't able to wake him up. Isn't that true, ma'am?
No.
No, it isn't true?
No, I was not able to wake him up.
And he never was able to communicate, correct?
Correct.
You had good reason to believe that whatever injury he had was serious. Isn't that true?
I wish I would have. I didn't know. I honestly didn't know that it was going to be this bad.
Okay.
I thought he was going to wake up and we were going to go home.
Did you believe that throwing the stool at Mr. Sehmer was the defense?
Objection.
Of what it was that Mr. Sehmer was doing?
He was trying to keep, my husband was trying to keep him away.
Well, he could have kept going the other direction, could he?
Like ran away?
Yeah.
That's not what happened.
All right, to discuss, watching along with you at home, our guest for this hour from St. Paul, Minnesota, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Jack Rice. Nice to see you again, my friend. You know, that last question, it kind of bugs me a little bit, you know, him run away. He's there with his wife, and he's trying to de-escalate this whole situation. That's what stood out to me. I don't know.
Oh, no, I understand, Matt. I mean, actually, these are both really, really good prosecution and defense, because if you think about what the prosecution did, is they really painted this picture. And I imagine these two relatively large men with this 5'2" smaller woman standing in between, trying to help de-escalate this. Was really graphic, very visceral, and I really, really liked sort of the visual that they painted. At the same time, what the defense is trying to say is, you wrote everything down in your statement, and the one things that you left out were the fact that he actually threw the stool, or that the defendant threw the punch. Now, you could have put those in. The obvious question becomes, did he fall? Did Josh fall because he was hit? Or did he fall because he lost his balance, because he was under the influence, because he was something else? At this point, it's too early to make a determination based upon just that direct and cross. But what it does do is it raises this question of exactly what happened, because I think what the state had felt strong, what the defense was doing was actually making this a little bit weaker. And yet I agree with you completely. The idea that what she was going to do and what her husband was going to do was simply to run away. They don't have an obligation to run away when they're being attacked. And in this particular case, the question will be, which one of the two do you believe? Is it possible that she couldn't have had everything? She couldn't have had every single fact at her fingertips, because that's completely unreasonable. Her husband's in the hospital. Her husband was just attacked. She is completely on edge, and she admitted so on the stand. She strikes me as quite credible, and I think she's probably going to impact the jury with that credibility.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you about the obligation to retreat and whether or not that plays a factor in all of this. And it does come down to whether punched or pushed, because this defendant, part of his defense is that he just pushed him, had no intention of hurting him, fatally hurting him. But in short, Jack, you know, witnesses don't always write everything down when they're in the moment, and, you know, their hands are shaking, their husband's in the hospital. I mean, they can't be expected to write every little detail down, do you think?
Absolutely. And I don't think a jury would expect that. I think it would be unreasonable. And by the way, this idea of retreat, they actually did retreat. He assaults him. He at least scares them enough that they're trying to de-escalate this by leaving this space, by leaving this building, by leaving this restaurant. And the fact that they're pursued outside actually increases the fear, increases the potential for an assault. And so that's very real regardless. At what point do you feel cornered? At what point does he have to stay? Because now all of a sudden his wife is between them, this smaller woman, and if this man is out of control and he starts attacking them, now remember, everybody has the right to defend themselves and to defend others. If what Josh felt was that he was defending himself or defending his wife, those are absolute defenses. And because of that, this is something that the prosecution will be leaning into. And I think that's one of the issues that we're thinking about.
And you know what? We are going to be watching for that. We have to end the conversation there, but you're not going anywhere. You're going to be sticking with us all hour. We have to get in a short break. Still ahead, we continue to look back at the key testimony in the tattoo punch murder trial. After the break, the victim's friend testifies about what she saw on that critical night.
Tonight on Court TV.
These are the big cases that everyone is talking about.
A lot of new developments taking place.
Shocking.
I know who killed John Bonet.
To say the least.
You cannot make this stuff up.
It's unreal. The scene of the double murders is behind us right here. Things are happening. The investigation is continuing.
Closing arguments with Vinnie Politan. Tonight at 8/7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Welcome back. So it's a busy day here at Court TV. We are monitoring 2 courtrooms for you right now. In Massachusetts, happening now, the judge is reading jury instructions ahead of those all-important closing remarks before the jury will get the case and decide the fate of Christine Ritchie in her trial. We are also in Wisconsin at this hour, and we are talking about the key testimony that you might have missed in the tattoo punch murder trial for defendant Kevin Sehmer. On Wednesday, the state called Laura Burke to the stand. She introduced the defendant to the victim and testified about how the situation escalated the night to the point of violence. Listen to this.
During this night, did you ever see Kevin Sehmer drinking?
Yes.
What do you recall, first of all, what type of alcohol do you recall him drinking?
When I first ran into Kevin and met him, it was kind of a joke that he had a girly drink that was a pink, kind of a sea breeze, you know, vodka and cranberry. So I think I teased him about that a little bit, a girly drink.
Okay. Do you recall about how much Kevin was drinking that night?
I wasn't with him entirely, but every time I saw him that night, he had a drink in his hand.
And what happened next?
Jen and I were talking, and it seemed very quickly on that the guys were kind of standing all together, and Jen and I were nearby, and I just started hearing kind of some bad language and name calling, and some talk about tattoos, and it caught our attention.
Who was saying the bad language?
Kevin.
Did you hear Josh or Brian say any bad language during this initial interaction?
I did not.
Do you recall what Kevin's demeanor was like during this?
He came across just kind of hostile, which was surprising because he had been friendly earlier in the evening, but that had been several hours earlier.
Would you say he was friendly with you?
Earlier, yes.
Okay. Do you know who he was directing this hostile attitude towards?
Well, he was standing, Josh and Josh's friend were standing near him, so that's who the conversation was amongst.
Do you recall any other conversation between Kevin and Josh, Brian, Jen, and you prior to you kind of thinking, okay, I'm going to have Kevin go back by his friends?
I think there was some chit-chat, small talk. Again, just trying to diffuse the situation that, what I heard, the voices, it was, the word that caught my attention was Kevin was calling, I guess, I didn't know who it was directed to, but he was talking to Josh and his friend, and he used the word, which I thought was very aggressive with people you don't know. So I was like, oh, where's this coming from? So I was just trying, I wanted to diffuse the situation.
Do you recall Josh or Brian ever coming back into Tabby's?
Yes.
How did that happen?
I just saw Josh stick his head in the door, and it was like a, come on, Jen. Like they had been waiting for Jen outside the door, and we were seemingly unaware because we hadn't really communicated that.
And did Kevin react to that at all?
Yes.
What happened?
He lunged to the door.
Did you do anything to try to stop Kevin?
I grabbed his shirt tail.
Did that do anything?
No.
Did you observe what happened outside between Josh and Kevin while inside Tabby's?
Part of it.
And what do you recall?
I was looking for help. I did a quick assessment of the restaurant, like, was there anyone who could spring into action and help the situation? And no one was even seemingly aware that this was happening. And as I glanced out the window, I saw Josh outside the window.
And what did you see Josh doing?
I saw, by the time I saw him, he had a metal stool that was part of the bistro set, like a stool was over his head. I didn't see him lift it, I just saw it over his head.
And for the record, you just lifted your arms above your head, is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see Kevin?
Not from the vantage point that I had.
When Joshua re-entered the doorway, he yelled something to Jennifer, is that right?
He spoke it, so I wouldn't use the word yell. He said, come on, Jen.
Well, there was loud music playing, correct?
There was music. I wouldn't
define it as loud.
There was music playing, was there not? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And did he say something to the effect of, are you still talking to that? And then he uses a profanity. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear it at the time, but I have since heard it on the video that you just played.
Did that refresh your recollection?
No, I didn't hear that at the time.
Okay. So it indicates your statement now, ma'am, I'm going back to 102. You indicate that you, quote, I saw through the window that Josh had a chair raised above his head to hit Kevin as he approached. Is that what you saw?
That was my statement.
Is that what you saw?
That is what I interpreted seeing when I looked out the window. Yes.
What you saw?
Yes.
Correct?
I'm not being argumentative. I'm telling you, I just don't want you to put words in my mouth. So I saw a chair, and I just gave my testimony. What I saw was a chair over a stool over Josh's head.
He was holding it,
yes.
Correct?
Yes.
As if he was going to hit Kevin, correct?
I perceived it to be a defensive, like as Kevin was approaching him, that he was defending himself is how I interpreted it at the time.
Well, what you saw was that he, being Josh, had the stool above his head as if he was going to strike Kevin. Is that true?
As Kevin approached him. So that was my statement, as Kevin approached him.
Right.
Yes.
As Kevin approached, he you thought, looked as if he was about to strike Kevin, correct?
I didn't see any hit. I just saw a defensive move of having something over your head, so if someone's approaching you, that I assumed that would have been the next thing, but I didn't see any motion or movement moving forward at the time. That wasn't what I observed.
I understand, ma'am. What I'm asking is whether your impression from what you actually saw was that Josh was about to strike Kevin as Kevin approached Josh.
Objection, asked and answered.
Yeah, I think I answered.
Just a minute. Sustained.
Really good witness there for the prosecution. Let us know what you think. Let's bring in our guest for this hour, Jack Rice, standing by in St. Paul, Minnesota. She really paints a picture that this guy, this victim, was in fear of his own safety, raises it, and hopes that that deters this guy that's rushing him, this defendant.
Yeah, and she's holding on to her story, isn't she? I mean, that's really something. This is what she believes, and I think it comes across. Again, I think this is similar to Josh's wife in terms of how this is being presented. It feels authentic. And remember, when we're all trying to figure out what's going on, imagine being a jury of 12. And what this jury is looking at is they're trying to not just assess what the person is saying, they're trying to assess the honesty of the person as they say it. So they're always combining those two. And what you're seeing here is somebody who sounds like she's trying to give you the best assessment of her memory, of what she saw happened at the time. And that it can be critically important. One of the things that also is important here is that when we think about what the defense attorney is trying to do, he's trying to essentially corner her into a certain space. One of the things that he might do a little better is try to shorten her answers up. Early on in testimony, when you're doing cross-examination, this is not a back and forth. When the defense attorney is cross-examining somebody, what you're looking for is that a yes? Now, you don't have to be cross during cross. You can do this very lightly and kindly even, but you're just trying to make sure. So that's a yes, right? Okay, let's talk about what that means. And what you're looking for is directing your testimony as the defense attorney and having her agree with those decisions, with those assessments, rather than getting this weird ping-ponging back and forth where he says something and she says something more. You don't want that because this witness is going to hurt you. You can't allow her to do it, and you need to sometimes set it up to make sure that she doesn't.
Right, and our viewers are very keen on that. Yes, no answers, and it's usually the defense attorney who's basically testifying. So we're going to see what happens next. Another friend of the victim in the tattoo punch murder trial coming up next tells the jury what he saw the night his friend got into a bar fight. Brian Richardson's version of events, straight ahead. Court TV Live, I'm Matt Johnson in This Week for Ted Rowland. So happening right now in Massachusetts in the Commonwealth. The judge is still reading jury instructions ahead of those all-important closing arguments in the wife stabs husband murder trial. As soon as that begins, we will take you there live. Meanwhile, in Wisconsin, we are bringing you testimony in the murder trial for Kevin Sehmer. Prosecutors say that Sehmer made negative comments about Josh Davies' tattoos before punching him. Davies fell on the ground, hit his head, later died from his injuries. The defense claims that the victim attacked Sehmer with a bar stool outside that wine bar and that Sehmer pushed, not punched, the victim. The jury heard testimony from several of the victim's friends who were at the bar that night. Here is what Brian Richardson told the jury.
You're also meeting Kevin for the first time?
Yes.
And do you recall if he spoke to you directly?
Not to me.
Do you recall who he was speaking to?
He was talking to Josh about tattoos.
What do you remember Kevin saying?
He said, "Do you know what they say about tattoos? You're going to hell for ruining God's work."
Was that early in the conversation?
That was right after Jen, his wife, introduced him as her husband.
Those are the first words Kevin spoke.
The first words that I remember him saying were to Josh.
Okay. What was Josh's reaction?
Kind of joking around about it, saying how he wanted more, because I mean that was kind of his thing.
Okay.
About tattoos.
And to this point, have you said anything directly to Kevin Sehmer?
No, and I don't think I did the whole night.
And did you hear Josh saying anything further at that point?
Besides getting more, that's pretty much the only thing I remember him saying.
Okay. When you and Josh get around on the other side of the girls and you're standing at the tables, were you and he talking?
Yeah, I was talking to him, kind of saying we should just go outside.
Why did you say that?
Because he made a comment about just going outside and practice stumbling and just kind of seemed like it was getting to the point where I didn't want it to be.
And when Mr. Sehmer came out, what did you see next?
I was kind of towards his back, so I just saw him running towards Josh.
Did you see him do anything?
Yeah, I saw him punch Josh.
Prior to that, right when he came out the door, did you see him do anything?
No, I saw him running towards Josh.
Did you see a stool?
Outside there's stools. I don't remember ever seeing anybody with one.
Okay, no one.
I don't believe so.
And you remember seeing him make contact with the side of Josh's head?
Yes.
What happened next?
He fell to the ground and hit his head.
Do you have any sense of how much alcohol, and by that I mean a beer, a drink, how many he had?
All night?
Yeah. From the time you were with him until the time you last saw him?
Not offhand. I couldn't tell you a number.
Pardon me?
I couldn't tell you a number, but I mean, he had a few.
Well, a few typically means 3 or 4. Are you talking about significantly more than that, sir?
Well, I mean, if he had 1 or 2 under disc golfing, and then if he had another, let's say 3 or 4 when we were out in, 4 hours later.
Did he being Josh, appear intoxicated by the time you went to Tabby's?
To me, no. He was still coherent and still walking around, still talking to people, just enjoying the night.
Okay, and you know him pretty well, so you would have been in a position to know whether he appeared to be intoxicated. Is that true?
Yes.
And you didn't see, for example, Josh picking up a stool over his head?
That I don't remember.
Well, would you have remembered?
If I would have seen it, yes.
Okay. And instead, you didn't see either Josh holding a stool over his head or Josh throwing a stool or anything like that?
I did not.
And you've been his friend a long time.
Yes.
This was obviously a sad event for you.
Yes.
Now, you have been convicted of a crime, correct?
Yes.
How many times?
3.
So, you didn't see Josh either throw a stool or raise a stool over his head, correct?
That I didn't see anything.
And you would have been able to see it based upon where you were, correct?
At the time that Kevin passed me, I was behind him, so I don't know what happened. You know, so I was going out to where the area was, but I wasn't out in front, so I didn't know if anybody had a stool. I didn't see one.
And again, because we've asked, I'm going to try to be done with this, but you have told us and are telling this jury that you were in a position to see what those two were doing at that point, correct?
Yes.
You must have, because you said you saw him get punched. Correct?
Yes, I was outside and I saw him get hit.
And you saw what Josh did moments before he got hit then, correct?
Yeah, he didn't do much. I mean, he was backing up and then he kind of like was just standing there and then he got hit.
Okay. All right. And you said you didn't see any stool moving or anything, but you saw a stool on the ground next to Josh.
There was a stool on the ground. I don't know how it got there. I don't remember if somebody threw it, if somebody used it. All I know is it was there.
But you didn't see anybody.
I did not, and I don't know if that was when I was still on the back side of the wall.
No, I'm talking about when you were there, sir. I'm not asking when you couldn't see it. I'm saying when you were watching, did you see anything happen with that stool? Or any stool?
No, I didn't see anyone with a stool, but it could have happened when I was sitting down when Kevin came out of the door. I don't know if it was used at that point, but once I got up, I did not see it.
And you saw Mr. Sehmer leave, correct?
Yes.
And you saw him moving towards Josh?
Yes.
And you could see what they were doing?
But I saw his backside when he was moving towards Josh.
Well, I understand you saw his back, but you could see more than just his back, correct?
I mean, he's a bigger guy.
Well, he's not a balloon. I mean, he's a person, correct?
Yes.
And you've indicated you could see what happened.
I saw him go towards him, but I don't know if he had anything. I didn't see anything.
But you were able to see if Josh had something in his hand.
Yeah, he was facing me.
And you would see it if he had had a stool over his head?
Yes, I would.
Okay. All right.
And remember, we are recapping this key testimony that you may have missed. Still ahead, Kevin Sehmer, in his own words, will show you the defendant's police interrogation video. Coming up, you're watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
Court TV fans, you demanded it.
Here we go, do it.
So now you're getting more true crime at nighttime.
Oh my God, oh my God.
48 hours on Court TV tonight, 7/6 Central on Court TV. Sunday, August 11th, the season finale of Accomplice to Murder.
The horrors they uncovered are horrors not even inflicted upon prisoners of war.
Accomplice to Murder with Vinnie Politan. Season finale, Sunday, August 11th, 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Welcome back. Happening right now, we are in 2 courtrooms at this hour. In Massachusetts, the judge still reading those all-important jury instructions ahead of closing arguments in the wife stabs husband murder trial. And while we wait for court to resume there, let's turn to Wisconsin, where we're monitoring another live trial that's underway, the tattoo punch murder trial. Yesterday, Detective Paula Hoffa walked the jury through the police interrogation video of the defendant right there on your screen, Kevin Sehmer. Hoffa began the interview by asking him what happened during the incident that left the victim, Joshua Davies, unconscious and lying on the ground and eventually dead. Let's take a listen.
We're just doing small talk and stuff. And then she asked one of the 2 girls, they introduced me to the 2 guys. Okay. And, so I don't have any idea what their names were. Yeah. And but I could tell that they were pretty intoxicated. Okay. And he had tattoos all over. Okay. Now And I did is make a comment. I said, we were talking about tattoos before, which we were.
Okay.
And because she was saying Tom's religious and so is this Lori.
Okay.
So, and I just said, a long time ago, somebody had said to me that if you get a tattoo, that you're marking out God's work, you know.
Okay.
And it's a sin. And I mentioned that to the guy, and he's like, you must be one of those Catholic boys.
Okay.
And I said, no, as a matter of fact, I'm Lutheran. And I said, but, and he was we instantly did not hit it off, if you will.
Okay.
So I got my drink. I think I had maybe one sip out of it, and that was it. I put it down, and then she introduced me again to the guys, and then her girlfriend. And then when I mentioned about the tabs, he came over to me and he's like, yeah, look at these babies, you know. And he goes, I got one of my wife naked, and she's got her boobs. And he's like this, going like this and pushing them together.
Okay.
And I'm like, I didn't say a word. I just said, I'm thinking of myself, impressive. And then again, you could tell there was tension between us and stuff. So when he called me a Catholic boy, and so that kind of didn't go over real big, but you know.
So were you upset by that comment that he made?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was just yelling, maybe it wasn't appropriate, but I just wasn't just making a comment about tattoos and what I learned from years ago.
So when you said you were upset, then did you start yelling at him?
No, I just said I'm Lutheran, and that's when things got a little blurry because it was a little loud in there, and he was saying things, and I was saying things, and I'm like, why don't you two get out of here? I said, why don't you go outside, practice falling down, kind of kidding around. I'll be out there in a little bit,
Okay, so you guys were all like talking?
Yeah, just talking, and guys.
So both talking to each other?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you said, why don't you just go down and fall down?
Yeah, just why don't you practice falling down? I'll be right out there, And he had said something to me, do this and that, and I don't even really recall. Now, I'm being honest with you, I don't really recall using any swear words or anything like that, but I was still in control. I knew what was going on, but I had that feeling with him. I did not like him from the get-go. And
do you know his name?
I have no idea. And so then his wife takes them and takes both of them because they're inebriated and takes them outside the thing to cool down and whatnot.
Okay.
So then I'm sitting there talking to her about Tom and then, her girlfriend and stuff. Just us two inside.
Okay, so you're talking to Laura then?
Laura and this other, her girlfriend. And, I'm like, I may have said, what's his problem or whatever.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden he comes back in the bar and says some more to me, to everybody real loud.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what he said, but it was directed towards me. And then I kind of lost my cool, and I say I lost my cool. I just, what did you say? The one friend, he tried to hit me with a stool first, and I don't know really what happened, but all I did was block it, and that was it. And I didn't touch him, I didn't say anything to him, nothing. Then the other guy, the husband, he comes in, he's really, and he whines I thought he's gonna not, and I don't know what the hell happened with me if I had like some almost, it was like second power or something. I just held my hand there and I just pushed him that with the stool in his hand, and I just pushed him away. He fell over onto the ground, and then I left. And I'm like, oh, we're just doing it.
Okay. Dr. Papa, you were able to observe that entire clip?
Yes.
So at the end there, Mr. Sehmer says, I pushed him with that stool in his hand and I just pushed him away.
Correct.
Did you ask Mr. Sehmer if he ever punched Mr. Davies or him?
Yes, several times.
Okay. So there's just one other thing I want to clarify from this clip. At the beginning, Mr. Sehmer is talking about Tom.
Yes.
Who's Tom?
That is, I'm sorry. That is the friend that he came out to Heartland with.
And Tom Knopp?
Knopp.
K-N-O-P-P?
Correct.
And you spoke with him later?
Yes.
He also talked about Lori at the beginning. Do you know who he was referring to?
Yes, her name is Lori Jacobs.
Okay. It's a completely different person.
Correct.
Not Laura?
No.
So you did ask him about hitting Josh?
Yes.
So now I'm going to ask to take that down, ask to not publish to the jury right now. I want to bring up Exhibit 25. Okay, and Detective Hoffa, do you see Exhibit 25 on your screen?
I do.
Okay, and this is another portion of your interview with Mr. Sehmer on June 18th, 2023 at the Heartland Police Department?
Yes.
And this appears to be a fair and accurate copy, again, of part of this interview?
Yes.
I would move Exhibit 25 into evidence and request to publish. I would also note this is a short 30 seconds.
Over objection, the court will grant the receipt into evidence, and you may publish.
But it was open-handed. I do remember that it was open-handed, but I don't recall him, and I do not recall hitting him in the face whatsoever. I recall not hitting, but pushing the stool, period, into him, and then he fell over.
So you're saying you pushed the stool into the guy and then he went down?
Right.
Okay, did you go down at a pretty rapid rate?
Yeah, real easy.
Okay, and Detective Hoffa, you heard that clip, right?
I did.
And Mr. Sehmer is now saying he pushed the stool into the guy and the guy went down.
Yes.
At a pretty rapid rate.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to ask to take down publication to the jury. And I have one more clip, Your Honor. I'm going to bring up Exhibit 26 now. Detective Hoffa, do you see Exhibit 26 on your screen?
I do.
And again, is this a portion of your interview with Mr. Sehmer from June 18th, 2023 at the Heartland Police Department?
Yes.
Fair and accurate copy of it as it looks on the screen right now?
Yes.
I would move Exhibit 26 into evidence and request to publish.
Over the same objection, the court will receive Exhibit 26. You may publish.
And to be clear, Detective Hoffa, about how long is this clip?
1 minute and 7 seconds.
Period. So I'm going like this, trying to, and I think he's going like this and trying to hit me, and he's doing, as he's doing that, I luckily got a good, with the open hand, I got a good grip of the, and I didn't grip it, but I mean, I got a good spot on the stool where I just, if you want to use the word violently, that's kind of unfair, but I would say, yes, I pushed him down with one open hand, and he immediately went down the ground, And I didn't say nothing to anybody else. I turned around and I walked away. That was it.
At that point, okay, so right now the only discrepancy is that you say you pushed the stool into him and pushed him down, and everyone else is saying you made contact with his face and he went down.
Yeah, no.
Either way, he went down by your force. Can we at least agree on that? He went down by your force.
Absolutely.
Okay? Onto the sidewalk, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Okay. And so Mr. Sehmer agreed with you when he said he was the one causing Josh to fall to the ground.
Yes.
Detective, I just have a couple quick questions for you. You stated that you ran, well, first of all, DOT records, do those indicate height and weight?
Yes.
And you indicated previously you ran that for Mr. Sehmer?
Yes.
And what was the height and weight for DOT?
I believe it says stated Mr. Sehmer was 6 foot 2 inches and 275 pounds.
Now, do you know Mr. Sehmer's date of birth?
I do not.
You know about how old he is?
He stated he was 63 at the time of my interview with him.
And with us this hour to discuss, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Jack Rice in St. Paul, Minnesota. As we established last hour, thank you for being with us. You also did some interrogation work yourself with the Central Intelligence Agency. So as we're watching this portion of the interrogation video by Detective Hoffa, what have you observed?
Watch her start to ratchet down. She starts to clarify. If you notice, she's not changing his testimony, and it doesn't even feel like it when she sits in the room. But Matt, I have to tell you, this is one thing that I appreciate so much when I see a really good interrogation. There's a perception out there amongst some that to be a police officer, to be a detective, to be an inspector, you have to be a certain kind of person. Sometimes I've heard this term, sort of big white band thing. And the problem is that is ridiculous. And frankly, it's completely and utterly incorrect. What you find is that the best investigators, the best detectives are those who use the skill set that they have. Sometimes people dismiss them and they use it. What you find here is somebody who is highly talented, highly thoughtful, who's thinking about what she's doing, and she's moving in her own head and watching how he's reacting, how he's gesticulating and using his arms, because she's maneuvering not just herself, but him down a particular path. It's really impressive, and what makes a good detective, what makes a good officer, is somebody who understands how to read a room and read the person in front of them, and she is doing this masterfully.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you bring that up because, you know, in the movies, we always see like the coffee being thrown or the light in someone's face, stuff like that, like very aggressive, and she's just so calm and collected, just writing things down.
It is such a great point. You know, I think about this, and again, if I can take it back, working many years ago in the CIA, one of the things you learn is that you're reflecting the subject in front of you. You're reflecting the person in front of you. And we are all motivated by different things. We are all driven by different things. You know, sometimes it's those who are aggressive. That's what moves people. For some people, it's showing your empathy to them. It's about having them understand what you're going through, and all of a sudden they start to open up in front of you. For some people, it's about making them feel important, about making them feel like they're the star of the show, and you do whatever you need to do to get them into the place that you need to be and where they need to be in order to give you what it is that you want. So it's much more about this internal dialogue for the interrogator to watch and move to make sure you're driving that subject, that person in front of you. And sometimes when we get to do this, I am watching her hand movements. I'm watching how she rubs just her chin. I'm watching how she writes things down. I'm watching how much eye contact she has, because this is all something that drives certain people certain ways. And it's not just a standard. It's not just, we do it this way and this is how it's done. Every person is different, and you need to be nimble enough to make sure you give them what they need so they'll give you what you need.
Well, it's now in evidence in this trial, so we will see how the jury reads into it.